This is an interesting story in its own right. I mean, far less interesting, let's put this up there on the screen, which is that Elon Musk will officially take ownership of Twitter on Friday, or at least that's expected. I guess something still could technically happen, but he's notified deal makers and other equity holders in the company that he will finalize his takeover. He changed his Twitter bio to, quote, Chief Twit. He has, the real story is, okay, now that Elon has effectively been forced to buy Twitter, what is he going to do with Twitter? He denied yesterday that he would be firing 75% of the workforce, but he still could fire 50 and not, claim that. Twitter right now,
74.2%.
Yeah, 74.2%. I mean, look, Twitter has tremendous problems. They are a business which is long failing. Even though they are put up there with the Facebooks and the Googles of the world, they don't have even close to the same market capitalization.
Right.
They don't have nearly the same amount of operating revenue or even profit. It's not a particularly profitable company. Of all the social media giants, from a pure monetary perspective, it is by far the weakest, which is why he's able to buy it effectively with Tesla stock in the first place. Elon himself walked into the Twitter lobby yesterday. Let's go ahead and put the video for those who are just watching. Elon walked into the lobby of Twitter carrying a sink saying, "Entering Twitter HQ. Let that sink in." So, bit of a pun, I guess. Classic Elon pun.
It's a real dad joke there.
Just put it all to this, which is that he just spent $44 billion in cash on a failing business, which was probably worth $20 billion at best. And just to give you some insight, people at Twitter who are obviously leaking in order to show you just how much of a mistake really, frankly, was to even buy Twitter, put this up there, which is that internal Twitter data leaked to Reuters shows that the most active users who are, let me get the exact numbers here. The heavy tweeters who account for less than 10% of monthly overall users, but generate 90% of all tweets and half of all Twitter global revenue, have been, quote, in absolute decline since the pandemic began. A Twitter researcher has an internal document called "Where Did the Tweeters Go?" And what they define a heavy tweeter as is somebody who logs into Twitter 6 or 7 times a week and tweets about 3 to 4 times a week, which most news people would put them to absolute shame.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't consider myself a heavy tweeter, and I
by this
definitely,
definition, even I am, and I've pared mine back by 90%.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to tweet like 100 times a day, which is obviously way too much. So anyway, the point being that the most active English-speaking users, which make up most of the global revenue and most of the users on the Twitter platform, have been in absolute decline. Now, this is funny. What are the highest growing topics of interest in the last 2 years? Cryptocurrency, porn.
Crypto and porn, basically.
Yeah, that's basically it. And given the crypto crash, not inspiring.
They say even crypto now with the crypto crash has been like plummeting in that one too. So now it's just porn.
And the core stuff, the core product of news, sports, and entertainment is apparently waning amongst those users.
And the problem is that, no problem with porn. It's fine that it's on there. In fact, I think they actually do a pretty good job of like allowing there to be porn on Twitter, but it not like taking over everybody's timelines. You know what I mean?
I've never personally seen it on Twitter.
You haven't? I mean, I occasionally have.
Well, there's one porn star who's like a male porn star who's a massive fan of, I won't even shout him out, but he's a massive fan of our show. And so one time I was like, oh, who is this guy? And I was like, oh my God. All right. So shout out to you, I guess.
Anyway, the issue from a business perspective is it's not as profitable because, blue chip advertisers, they don't have their ad next to whatever Saagar happened to stumble upon on Twitter. So, so that's the real issue from a business perspective. I don't know, there's a lot to say about this. I mean, first with regard to Elon, like my position the whole time has just been, let's wait and see. Let's see if the deal really closes. Let's see what he actually does because he's thrown out all kinds of ideas and plans and, PowerPoints and whatever. Let's see what direction he actually takes it in. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse, maybe it's indifferent. I have no idea, so I'm just going to wait and see. Do I think there are ways that you can improve Twitter? Absolutely. I mean, Twitter is like kind of a hellscape. Like it's sort of great and it's sort of terrible, and it seems like even putting like the free speech and censorship piece aside, there are things that you could do that would make it less of a like hellscape where no matter what you say, everybody's incentive is to be like, you're stupid and terrible and intentionally misinterpret what you say. There are lots of other platforms that don't have that vibe and ethos. I'm not smart enough to understand why Twitter has that and other places like Instagram don't. But anyway, there seems like there could be improvements in terms of the quality of the discourse on the platform. Put that aside.
Yeah.
Or you have a thought?
Well, I was just going to say, I frankly think that is probably what contributes to engagement,
well,
which is how people make money.
That's what, well, maybe, but then on the other hand, why are they losing these heavy tweeters? Maybe because Twitter is a miserable place to hang out.
It's true.
You know, ultimately, it could be like a penny wise, pound foolish kind of a situation of this culture that you've created because, at any individual day, like the level of outrage and engagement and all of that is really ginned up. But over time, people are like, why? Like you, like, why do I have this in my brain? Why do I have this in my life? Why am I obsessing over this day to day when it's making me feel worse? So I don't know. I do think it's also... There's a couple things here. I mean, they point to specifically engagement around liberal politics has taken a heavy slide downward, which is just consistent with overall news media.
General vibe,
you know, general news media. I mean, they point to spikes around things like the U.S. attack, the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. But in general, huge declines on that. Also, they say they're losing a, quote, devastating percentage of heavy users who are interested in fashion or celebrities, like the Kardashian family. And they think that those particular users are just moving over to places like Instagram, TikTok, in particular, I think TikTok.
Probably, yeah. It makes sense, which is, look, at the end of the day, it was a great invention for distribution, but I've always been the greatest critique is your individual power as a Twitter user, as a random small account, is just very low. You know, we see this, which is that disproportionately, that's what they point to. 90% of all tweets come from only 10% of the user, but that's terrible from an engagement.
Very unequal. That's why it's such a place for elite thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's not really a particularly good business. Look, he could try a lot of things. The Twitter subscription thing ultimately failed. They did a rollout. Now, if they could possibly force heaviest users to pay, that could work. You know, once you reach, let's say, over 50,000 followers, you have to pay $3.99 a month in order to maintain access to your followership. Not a terrible idea, actually. But there's a lot of things that you can do. On its current trajectory, I just don't see any way without massive layoffs. Let's put this on the screen, which is that Twitter users or Twitter employees have put out an open letter basically saying, please don't fire 75% of us. But the irony is that internal Twitter documents actually show that the vast majority of the workforce was already kind of put at risk. They were already weighing massive layoffs at the company. Maybe not in the 75th percentile range, but something like 20% or so of the workforce. So no matter who took over this company, it was going to be a bloodbath from day one. And look, you know, I like Jack Dorsey just from a purely like ideological perspective. I think his heart was in the right place, but you know, God bless him, he did not do a good job in creating a good business here. And maybe it's not possible. Maybe it was always impossible for it to be a great business. It was maybe it's one of those things like it's a great service like Google, but it just doesn't have the monetary back end.
You know, one of the insights that Elon does have that I have all kinds of issues with Elon, but that I think is correct is like he's very skeptical of public companies and public markets because of the way it messes up incentives.
Oh, he's correct.
And he's absolutely correct about that. I mean, we talked to Rana Foroohar earlier this week, who's a wonderful thinker and just wrote a great book called Homecoming and has also written books like Makers and Takers, all about the financialization of our economy. And the reality is, private businesses really are much more incentivized to focus on the quality of their product. The numbers bear out. They invest way more in research and development versus, you know, your public company, the whole game is like buying back your own stock and all this financial engineering crap. So, I mean, that's another issue here as well. But look, I'm curious to see what he does. If it improves the platform, that would be wonderful because it really is central to our elite discourse and political dialogue. I mean, in some ways, of course, like what happens on Twitter isn't real, like it's not, Twitter's not real life, whatever. But it does really set the agenda in terms of elite opinion makers. And so it is a very critical part of our public square. It's personally why I don't think it should be up to the whims of profit incentives. I think it should either be like basically, you know, public utilities, part of the sort of infrastructure of how we conduct democracy. But if there are any marginal improvements that are made here, it would be a positive thing.
I would really like it. I mean, I think a return to the chronological feed, which you can do yourself.
That'd be better.
I've done that, but most people don't do that. As away from the algorithmic feed would be very beneficial for. There's a lot of things I could do for the service, but I just don't see a way that it makes a lot of money. That's why I just don't think there's any world in which he will make any of his money back. But I mean, look, maybe he did the world a favor, which is that you burn your cash and you do, basically eat the cost for the rest of us to have a service, which I do think is vital. But from a business perspective, I really just don't see it. From an advertising related business, it's just not going to happen. Now, never bet against him from a business perspective. I think all of us have learned that. It's very possible he could turn the ship around. He could turn it into a lean, mean machine and then just, increase the operating revenue, and that alone would drive a profit. And then maybe he could even sell the company in the future. We'll see what he ultimately does.
I mean, I don't really care how the business does.
Yeah.
I care about how it is for society. We'll see. We'll see what he does. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.